check. All right, welcome to some Living Freestyle game dev. Let's do a quick little Levels. Welcome to some living freestyle game dev. Today we're actually going to try to add a little bit of music to our background. Welcome to some living freestyle game dev. Today we're actually going to try to add a little bit of... Everything seems great. Sweet. My name's Kevin. We try to do this twice a week, Sundays and Wednesdays, Sunday evenings, Wednesday mornings, so that we can cover a couple different time zones. I currently work in game dev. I'm currently working at Riot Games in R&D. And what we're doing here is all the cool stuff that we don't get to do at work. I get to do a lot of cool stuff at work, but I also, there's a lot of cool stuff out there that I also just want to play with and try. And usually we set this up like a Q&A. If people have questions about anything with, game dev, Unreal, Maya, etc., we'll try to answer all those questions. And those take priority. Otherwise, if there are no questions or there's nobody here, because it is late on a Sunday night, then what we'll do is we're just working on a game that I'm working on. So with that, it looks like, let's have a quick check. I don't actually see any questions, and we can actually double check our past Q&A. So there was nothing there to kind of pick up. So let's pick up from where we left off until we see that changes. Cool. Let's hop right back into Unreal. All right, if you remember last time we were working on getting our we were basically working on getting our enemies set up so that they could go berserker mode and all kinds of other stuff. And we're still working with AI. We should still have our enemies spawning. We've got two. Actually, it looks like we didn't save our level. So here we only have one enemy. He's got a certain chance of going berserker. But interestingly enough, though, even though he's berserker, he's still in runaway. He should not be in runaway mode. It almost looks like we lost stuff. Like it didn't save. So we're definitely going to need to fix that. But this time he did. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Is it because he went berserker on the first try? That might be a bug in the way we did this. This is going to take... Okay. This may take a second to figure out here. Okay, so he went berserker on the first try. Man, it looks like it's working. I'm not crazy though. You all saw that, right? Alright, well, anyways. So we were back there, we had our berserker mode, and we had just gotten to the point where we dropped in 2 enemies. And we were working with how they talk to each other. So in this case, if one of them is injured, depending on how far away the other one is, and whether or not they're berserker, they will still attack. But for some reason, looks like my mouse isn't actually connected. It's gonna make that tough. So let's weaken this guy. He's going to run away. He gets a buddy, and then he comes back and he starts fighting me. All right, so it looks like we're back where we kind of left off, which is good. Now, there's a couple things that we can work on tonight. One of them I was thinking was, if you recall, there was an enemy perception thing where the way they're determining who to fight isn't working with the AI system. I need to take a look at why that is. Another thing is, they're not able to nav these platforms, which I was thinking, I want to see if that is they don't know how to jump problem or if it's a nav mesh problem. So what I was thinking of doing was just taking this guy. Let's duplicate this off and make a ramp. That they can maybe travel down. Just curious if that's why they can't navigate. We can see our nav mesh getting generated here. It's interesting that it doesn't actually go on top of that platform though. Okay. So with that, let's see if we play, if they can get off this middle platform. They haven't seen me yet. Now he sees me. He doesn't seem to be able to come up and down this. It's interesting. I'm not convinced the nav mesh is being generated properly there. So that's going to be something we're going to look into. Oh, look at that. It's a height thing. So depending on how high this platform is, the nav mesh generates. So if I get this to here, the nav mesh generates. See something. I'm curious. Look at that. It's now navigable. There must be a height setting somewhere that we're missing. Okay. Well, that's okay. I think that will work. If we play again just to check it. Okay, I can't step up on it. He's on top of it. Yep, he went out and around. So there's got to be a height setting somewhere that we'd have to track down. So that's a couple things that we can work on. But overall, that's cool. Now the other thing that I want to work on with the AI is, so if we get back to our base pyramid, kind of the thing that we originally talked about, which was the Maslow's triangle that we were trying from the whole fundamentals of instruction for, you know, for the FAA for flight, which is where I first heard about it. The base of that pyramid is, you know, physiology, safety, health, and stuff like that. So our enemies are paying attention to their health, which is what we wanted. They're attacking when they're healthy. They're attacking if they have friends. They're attacking if they go berserker. I mean, that's feeling pretty good so far. I think it might be cool to see what happens with some of the hoarding behavior. So let's just have a little fun here. And I want to turn on 10 enemies and just see how they arrange themselves around me when they do come to attack. All right, so these little white spheres are where they're all going. Do they kind of show up in reasonable places? I mean, it's actually working pretty well. They're not crowding. They're staggered. It's semi-random. If I move, they kind of reposition. That's cool. I don't know. I think that's kind of working. So we should probably take a look at how I did that, because I actually can't remember how I did that. I'd also love to figure out why I keep getting bounced way back. So let's see if we can figure out. Let's take a look at how we did that. So in our enemy tree, we pop this up here. This is going to be in our fight, and we're going to move to update current attack position. Update current attack position. Update last known target. I think it's probably in here. So let's take a look in here. Oh goodness. Okay, so what's up, Antius? How are you doing on Sunday night? All right, while we're looking at this, all right, these are all of our debug spheres. I'm going to keep those on right now. What are you working on? What are you deving? So we got our sequence. We're going to ignore the range stuff. That's not what I'm looking at. We've got our local ring index. This isn't being used for anything, interestingly enough. I'll have to think about this. Oh, maybe that's for multiplayer. I have to go back. So we check our sphere, we look for overlaps, and then we get a ring index. We're making an online Roman Gladiator combat multiplayer for PC. Yeah, that'd be cool. I love checking that stuff out. I am making a third/first person it's not an ARPG. It's kind of hard to explain, but what I'm working on basically is right now I'm working on getting kind of like the prototype up and running, and the kind of the core foundation of that is going to be the combat doesn't have to be amazing, it just has to be good, it just has to feel good. So one of the first things I need to do is just get combat to feel good, and part of one of my general thinking or thought pillars or whatever is that the AI needs to be a little better than normal. And so I think ultimately one day, you end up with machine learning, but I think I can go a long way without that, especially from a prototype. So right now I'm just working on AI, trying to get the AI to seem not dumb. And then once I get the game just feeling good, then I think for most of what I want to do, a lot of it is the social aspect of it. Shadows of Glory. I'll check that out when I finish the stream. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. All right, let's see. So what is happening in here? So the AI is looking for a spot to run to. We know they're not ranged, so we're not gonna worry about that. This is a whole spaghetti mess that we are definitely gonna clean up. But basically what it's doing is it's going through and it sets the ring index to 1, so we're skipping the first ring if it's melee. And then it goes through 2, and then for each one it checks for sphere overlap actors. And the overlap actors it's looking for are pawns. It checks the overlaps. Okay, so here's what's happening. There is a max number of characters that can be within each ring that is set by this max per ring. And then if it's greater than the max, what happens is it'll actually stack it. So what's going to happen is the enemies are going to create these ever increasing rings outside of where we are. And right now our current max per ring is set to 4. So if we set this down to, this might be interesting. The last index is 2. There's only 2 rings. Let's try something. We have 10 enemies. Let's try 2 per ring. So let's make this 5 rings total with a max of 2. So if we rerun our sim, or we rerun our game, what should happen is as they stack, they're going to reposition, if I can hold still. All right. So there's 2 in the first. Yeah, they're definitely much further spread out. You can see how deep they are now. They're much further away, much further spread out, and they're just kind of, working to maintain that 2 to a ring aspect. So that's kind of cool. So if we wanted to feel more like they're horde moding, we can probably go down to back to 3 rings total, and then max per ring, I think we had 4. If we make it 6, this ought to be interesting. This might be way too crowded because of our collision problems. We might be jumping around a lot. All right, so now we should have quite a few more in that first ring. 2, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So we got quite a few more in the first ring, and you can see all of the enemies are much closer this time. They're all stacked in there. I think it's a bit crowded on the inside, so I think I'm going to go back to the settings that I had, but overall that's what past me did, and I'm just trying to remember what the heck I was doing at the time. So we've got 3 rings, 4 per ring, I think is what we're doing, although it might be worth figuring out. I'm not sure what happens if we have 10 characters but only 2 ring and it can only be 4 per ring. What happens? So what's going to happen is let's figure it out. we're setting our ring index to 1 because we're starting at least from 1 because we don't want to write inside. And then we're going to do our sphere. We're going to go through. We're going to see how many other pawns are in there. If it's greater, we're going to increment our ring index. And we're going to come back around in here. And we are going to break if that's not true. So then it comes back in. The problem is there's a last index here. I mean, technically speaking, the extra 2 characters aren't going to do anything. We're not going to know what they're doing. This is sort of an interesting way to do this. I mean, I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't just set this to a really big number. Right, if we set this to 10, here, let's do this. Let's set it back to 2. And we'll play. We have 4 per ring. So alright, so now they're gonna come in. I got 1, 2, kind of 4 in, and they're kind of shimmying around. 4 inside, and then there's 2 on the outside. Okay, but it's sort of settled. 4, 4, and 2 on the outside. So if that's the case, if I change this to, let's say 10, it should still be roughly the same, 4, 4, and 2. Just kind of come back out here to the middle. Get everybody to settle in. All right, so we have 4 on the inside. Four. It's roughly about the same. All right, so I think the good thing about that is what that will do is it will handle hordes better if I have 20 enemies or 30. Now, there's an interesting thing that we may want to consider as part of this, now that I think about it though, which is there's no factor in enemy size here. And so maybe what we want to do is we want to factor in the enemy size, because if we have a giant tank, maybe that tank should be worth more than a single player pawn. And so I think that's something that we'll just stick in our notes to work on, or to keep in mind as we start getting different size players, that we're probably going to want to refactor this to be able to handle size of enemies. Now, what's interesting is I don't know why this is here, so I'm going to delete that. Just trying to go back to what I had originally said about cleaning up blueprints. I'm going to skip these rings for now, just to get rid of a lot of the visual mess. This debug sphere is actually where he's actually going to, where the enemies are going to. And then we can skip that too. So we'll skip that debug sphere. That's going to drop down. Now, what does this connect to? Oh, we can do a lot of cleanup here. All right, so pressing Q just to straighten those lines. And one of the things that's interesting here, I haven't really decided on what I think is the best way to handle things like a variable like this, right? So this variable is plugged into this value vector. Having it here and then the whole blueprint is just spread super long and you just have to scroll to feed it, or keeping it so that these are stacked. Like this is the top one, this is the bottom one, and then this whole thing makes up what it is. It's just a little bit more tight in there. So like I said, I haven't really decided what I like better yet. All right, so these come in here. That's our break. Cool. Let's get these guys to, oops. And these are flopped. So you can see I was kind of trying to do the same thing here. Okay. Oops, missed that one. There's our sanity check. This comes into our branch. And once again, I've done the same thing. I've got this where these blueprint lines are all kind of crossing and stuff, so I'm just cleaning this up as I go. And interestingly enough, okay, so this is where I was trying to get to. I don't know if you all noticed, there was a no bueno that was printing on the screen. And I wanted to understand a little bit better of why no bueno was printing. So basically, we're going to find a new spot. And what happens in order to find a new spot is we go through 10 iterations of getting a random location in the navigable radius, and we get the ring index, and we're getting the radius from the last. Okay, so basically what's happening is we are doing 10 iterations of looking for a spot that is within a certain distance of the target, and then we're setting that as our location check, and then we are checking to see if the distance from the location check is greater than the ring index times the radius. Okay, so is the distance from the location check and the last enemy location greater than... Okay, so we're checking to make sure that it's outside the current ring setting. Okay, so that's what it's doing. So if that's true, then we're going to go in and we're going to check the location again, and we're going to check to see if it's greater than... I see. What it's doing is it's trying to look to see if it's within a band. So basically, there's... Here, I could probably draw this. If we come back to Unreal, we come back here, and let's see, do I still have my whiteboard connected? It looks like I do. That's great. Okay, so what's happening here? Let's take a look at this. This is our, let's go green for hero. So this is our hero. And then there is a radius around our hero. There's a series of rings around the hero, right? That the enemies are looking to go inside of. Okay? And what's happening is when they're looking at, what they do is they say if each of these are numbered. If we so this is going to be ring 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are our ring indices. That's what this is talking about. So this first loop over on the left was doing is it's saying it's checking basically for any given spot. What it's checking to see is, let's say that I'm supposed to be in this shaded area. It's checking to see if I'm greater than 1 and less than 2. Is the random spot that I got within that ring? And if it's not, then it's basically printing no bueno. So if we go back to Unreal, I don't know if that's the most efficient way of looking for what we're looking for, but it is an interesting way, I guess. But that explains what that is. So basically what's happening is that iteration, it's going through 10 different locations. And with those 10 locations, it's checking to see if it's within the ring it's supposed to be in. And if not, it's kind of like a no bueno situation. The reason the no bueno situation is no bueno is because that means that we're not actually updating the attack position at all. So the character will just stay where it is. Now, is that bad? What would be interesting? Here's what's be interesting. If we play, let's see how many no buenos we get, just generally speaking. And they'll go up as more people fill in. So there's a fair few no buenos. Nothing too crazy. They're kind of finding spots. Okay, so now if we increase the number of spots that we look at, though, let's go to say 50 spots. Now let's see how many no buenos we get. I would imagine this would be a whole lot less. I don't know if it is less. That doesn't look like less to me. It looks to be about the same. Okay, so maybe that's not doing what I thought it was doing. Oh. No, I mean, that's what that should be doing. It's just checking to see if it's within the radius. I wonder how many no buenos we get if we go down to just 2 enemies. All right, what I want to know is I want to know where it thinks there's no bueno. So let's draw a debug sphere here instead of printing no bueno. Whoops. Draw a debug sphere, and the location is going to be this. And let's make it red because it's not good. And we'll make the duration a little bit longer because my mouse is busted, so it's hard for me to look around right now. And let's see where it thinks is no bueno. Wait a minute. Oh, but see that, okay, but that's not really a no bueno situation. All it is we're just going to all it means is it doesn't mean that we're broken. It just means that we didn't find a place. What would be Here's my question. If we hit a no bueno, does it stop the loop? That's what we need to know. Because what happens is this comes through. That's the break. I don't think it does stop the loop. I don't even think we need this no bueno. I don't really think it's that bad. If both of these are false, it was outside the radius. So if both of these are false and we complete the loop, then that would be no bueno. So we could test that. And if we break out, let's see here. Let's print string. Let's print the index when it broke out. 0. Interesting. I find that hard to believe. So let's change this. Let's add back in some of our more enemies. Let's bring back our enemies. And play. Yeah, I'm not buying. Oh well, there we go. Broken out 2, 0, 1, 1. So it's not even having to go through that. If we increase our enemies to 20 enemies, let's try 50 enemies. This ought to be interesting. Oh. Okay, so now we got some higher numbers. There's an 11 there every now and then. But interestingly enough, the cool thing is there are 50 characters here. And they're all looking for attack positions. And they're not crowding too crazy. It's pretty cool that that's actually working. It'd be interesting to see what happens when that happens. Okay, cool. All right, well, enough kind of looking at that. That's basically how they're finding their positions. I don't think the no bueno is actually bad. It looks like it's working the way we would expect it to. So let's just save that because we did a bunch of cleanup. Let's bring this back down to 10 enemies. Okay, so at this point, I feel like our enemies are kind of going to a good place. I think my next step is either trying to figure out how to make them attack, or possibly we could take a look and make sure that the ranged enemies are working properly. So what kind of enemy is spawning from this thing? Welcome, Dosa Kim. Did you have any questions? Thanks for joining us. Sorry, just so you all know, there's kind of a delay in the chat when it shows up, so. All right, so there's a couple of things that I think might be interesting to fix at this point. I think it might be interesting to fix this thing where I'm getting bumped around. It's a combination of things. If they hit me, if one dude like hits me the wrong way, I get knocked out of place. And also the camera is like, see how the camera jitters? It's really jarring. And so yes, I'm working on AI. I'm definitely working on AI, and it's coming along. But at the same time, there's going to be these little things that are kind of annoying that kind of take me away from my goal a little bit. And so let's see if we can figure out how to fix the camera thing. I think it's as easy as making the enemy capsule component, and we make it so it doesn't block the camera. So inside the enemy area, we're looking for their collision presets. This is set to custom, and interestingly enough, this says it ignores the camera already. So it must be hitting something else. I wonder what it's hitting. Okay, so there's a couple things. Okay, the arrow component isn't it. The mesh should not have anything on it except for the physics. The physics does collide with pawn, and it blocks the camera. That might be interesting. We may want to go custom with this and see if it ignores camera, if that fixes our camera issue. All right. Ooh, I think that worked. Yep, that's way better. Perfect. So now, oh gosh, so much better. I should have done that a long time ago. Okay, cool. So basically what was happening in that case, even though the capsule was set to ignore the character, or the camera, what was happening was our camera was hitting the physics bodies that are on each of our enemies, which aren't even really active right now. They're just there for when they ragdoll when we shoot them in the head, right? So that they're ragdolls. All of those, that's all the physics bodies that are getting activated. When those get activated, then you know, the camera collision stuff comes on. So what was happening was it was just messing with us along the way. So that actually helped out a lot. Now, this whole where I get bumped around a little bit, that one might be a little bit harder. And I'm not quite sure how to fix that one yet. I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit. But so anyways, we fixed our camera real quick. That was cool. One of the things that we had talked about was maybe taking a look at do ranged characters work? It should be the same thing, but if you look in our ability tree, one of the things that happens when we come in a fight is we're going to select, and in our selector, we're going to check to see, in this case, is it a ranged character, this third one. Now, at the same time, you'll notice that a lot of the changes that we made over here, we have not updated to put over here. This is kind of where it's what we want to think about, the reusability of how we're structuring this. This decorator, this composite, really, it would be nice if it was on this selector instead. I'm wondering if I can copy this and paste it here. I can. So it sure would be nice if when we came in here, rather than having to copy this has friends, is healthy, or is berserk, if we just did it one time. Oh, very cool. Well, so if you have any questions about that stuff, I'm happy to try to stumble through them with you. So anyways, what we want to do is, I don't want to have to update this in two places. So if I delete this decorator and I delete that decorator, now this should cover both cases. It should cover both the ranged and the melee all in one. And if we come in here and we play again, it should be the same general gist. Okay, so, and the one thing that we need to do to test that though, is we need to go back down to a single character so that he doesn't have friends. Actually, Dose, a good question. Are the tunes still coming through? And are they too loud? Okay, let's shoot this guy. Oh, he went berserker, of course. 20% chance of going berserker, and I hit it every time. All right, so he's running away. Perfect. So he's still actually paying attention to that decorator, even though we moved it up a level. And the cool thing about moving it up the level is now we don't have to make the changes in two places. So let's come back to our ability tree. That's great. So that solves that. We're not going to worry about it. Has line of sight is set and is range. We could probably move the line of sight up as well. That would be a good one. And then tell friends, all this stuff, set focus, update, look. And this is almost exactly the same. Aim, end task. I wonder what the difference, what does an aim end task do? Simple parallel, update current attack position task. Aim, what does this do? Set rotation mode. Finish. Huh. Well, that's kind of wild. Aim start. Set rotation mode, aiming. I see. Okay, so there is a difference here. When we come in here, we may or may not tell our friends, set our line of sights. We will or may not aim and do some aiming things. I think. And how do we know if, oh, we're checked to see if ranged is set. And what determines if we're ranged or not? That's a really good question. I'm guessing it's on our class defaults. Let's see if we can find it on our class defaults. Nope, not there. Okay, I know it's on the blackboard. There's this is ranged. What I want to know is, do we actually set that anywhere? So let's just do a search for B is ranged. Nada. Let's check all blueprints for B is ranged. Oh, okay. So we basically never set that. Interesting. Well, that might be cool. Might be cool. What we could do, so there's a couple different ways we could do this. We could either set it so that the spawner randomly spawns. We could have two spawners, one that spawns ranged characters and one that spawns melee characters. Or what is more likely going to happen in the end is the enemy's abilities are going to be determined by what weapons it's carrying, not the enemy itself. That's why we're using the gameplay ability system theoretically. Keep in mind. Theoretically. So what that means is, for now to test it, we could also just randomly set whether the character is ranged or not. When they spawn. So in here, begin play, show hide health bar. Let's get the blackboard. Get the blackboard. And then let's set value as Boolean. And the key name we're going to use is, we're going to make one. And this one is going to be B is ranged. And then we're going to set that value to a random integer in range from 0 to 1. Because 0 is true. I'm not. No, it's not. Don't listen to anything I'm saying right now. It's late. It's been a long day. 0 is false and 1 is true. So sometimes when they spawn in, they'll be ranged, and sometimes they'll be not ranged. So if that is the case, what I'd really like though is I would love a way for us to know which ones are the ranged ones and which ones aren't. This would be a whole lot easier if we just had two separate spawners and we just made a separate enemy. It wouldn't be as fun though. It wouldn't be as fun. Because what I'm thinking is, if this is true, what we need to do is I was thinking we could update the material. We could update our material to be like blue, for example, for ranged. It's a whole lot easier just to spawn a completely different character though. Maybe we'll do that for time's sake. Let's take all of this, compile and save it. Let's browse to this enemy, and then let's create a child blueprint. Enemy, and let's call this enemy ranged child. And then what we want to do in here is, let's grab our mesh, go to our mat directory, duplicate that, and we're going to call this enemy range mat. I don't like these names. Enemy range. Enemy range mat. And let's make him blue. Right now is red, or maybe, yeah, sure, let's go blue. A bluish. Cool. Save that. Enemy child. Enemy ranged map. Fill that in for both. Compile that, save that, and now let's go back to our level. And we gotta undo. We've got to do a couple different things. First, we have an enemy. And what we're going to do is, let's take a look at this. This enemy is a child of the base character. So what we could do is we could just duplicate. Wait, didn't I just do that? Enemy ranged child. I did. I just did this. Where is this guy? Oh, perfect. Okay. So in this enemy ranged child in the construction script, we're going to call the parent, but we're also going to do all of this. But instead of setting it to a random value, we're just going to set it to true. So that these enemies are that are spawned they are ranged. Our mesh is currently set properly, and then everything else should be the same because it's a child. So let's, not sure why this is marked for save, but anyways, let's go back to our level, and I believe all we have to do is duplicate this guy up, and the spawner. Oh, that's interesting. How does it spawner know what it's spawning? Spawn enemy is getting the game mode, getting all the actors of a class of enemy, and it's doing its thing. Okay, so all right, here we go. Right now, the spawner is sort of hard-coded to spawn an enemy. It might be nice if the spawner allowed us on the map to choose whether or not the kind of enemy the spawner might spawn. Or if it randomly chose enemies of certain types, that might be a thing. In which case we wouldn't need two spawners. There we go. Actually, that's probably a more interesting way of doing this. Let's go back to this. We'll delete the second spawner. And then what we'll do is, in the spawner, that's where we'll choose which enemy we're spawning. And this might make more sense too in the long run, simply because at some point, we're probably not going to want it to be random. We are either going to want to set the spawner to choose the type, or we're going to want the spawner to be smart about understanding what kind of enemies are already there and how many of whatever we can spawn. So let's do this. Let's create a variable here called enemy class to spawn. And this is going to be a actor class reference. Interesting. Actor. By the way, to figure that out, class reference. Enemy. Enemy class reference. I'm curious about this. Okay. Not quite what I want. Let's compile, because what I want is I want this to be... Ah, that worked. Okay. So we can choose either one. We can either choose enemy or enemy range child here. That is what we wanted. And what we're going to do is when we first come in, let's is this an index-based thing, or is this, nope, we're gonna have to choose selector, I believe is the one we want here. Select. Okay, cool. Now we get our random integer in range. Random int in range. And the value that comes in here, 0 to 1. So what's going to happen? All right, so this is a new node that we haven't really used yet. And what I want to do is, I'm still doing the random thing where I'm either getting 0 or 1. It's like I'm flipping a coin basically in this blueprint. And then what I want to do is for option 1, I'm going to use enemy. And for option 2, it's not quite how I want that to work. I'm going to use enemy range. The interesting thing though here is though I'm not expecting to have to set this value. So let me see if I can just get an enemy range child. Nope. Make enemy. Nope. Enemy class to spawn. Variable type. Alright, well let's try that. I wonder if I can create an enumerator here. Enumerator? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it so that I can choose either class and then based on 0 or 1 just pick one. I mean, look, if I really wanted to do this the super hard-fisted way, what I can do is I can just go put a boolean in here, and then if it's true for 0, then what I'll do is I'll spawn a melee. We'll set this to melee, which is just the standard enemy. And if it's false, we'll set it to ranged. And then in both cases, we're going to come down here. And then what we would end up doing in the end is, and I'll clean this blueprint up in a second. If we get this guy, now this will have our class that we're spawning here. So this is going to randomly spawn either a melee or a ranged character. And then we also want to make sure we feed that into here as well. Right? So let's compile and save that and see how that goes. Let's see if we even get blue characters. Well, we only got one character. Let's go back up. There's one. Oh, but you know what? We broke something. Oh, that's wild. Okay, cool. So actually, there we go. Let's do that. So did you see how there were two? So we've got our blue dude. Where's our red dude? We need a red one. So here's our red, and we have a blue. We have both. Now, interestingly enough, that dude is saying fight melee. He should not be saying fight melee. We get a couple bugs. Okay, so first off, let's just double check our spawner. Our spawner is only spawning... Ah, come on. It's only supposed to be spawning 1, right? But it's spawning 2. Why is that? It's spawning 2 because it's only looking at enemies. So if we look, this is our enemy spawner. We're getting the game mode, max enemies is 2. We're getting all actors of class, enemy class to spawn, right? In other words, we're coming in and we're saying, how many enemies do I have? Do I have 0 or 1? And after the first enemy is spawned, it's like, okay, 0. Then it comes back, and the next time through, it goes to spawn a ranged character, and it says, how many ranged characters do I have? 0. Oh, I'm allowed to spawn it. But really, what we need to check is we need to check to see how many ranged, just how many enemies total we have. And so I think enemy. I wonder if that would work. See if that solves a problem. Like how many enemies? Oh, it doesn't like that. No, we're not doing bad. Just writes bad on the screen. That was great. Enemy. What might be interesting though is if we set this to enemy. This might work because the ranged is technically a child of the enemy, so that they may both show up. We got a red dude. We have no blues. He's dead. Let's try that again. Red dude, no blues. That's great. Just as a sanity check, we go back and we set this back to our class, and we get. Just make sure it wasn't something else I accidentally clicked. There's a red dude and a blue dude. Okay, so that is definitely the fix. And it makes sense because our enemy range character is inherent from enemy, so it still counts as an enemy because it's a type of enemy, which is cool. It's a very light touch version of how inheritance can help you. Okay, so here's the thing. For some reason, our ranged characters think that they're melee. So why do they think that they're melee? It comes back in here. So if it's Berserker, and this one is ranged not set, and this one is ranged is set. And if we fight update AI status task, fight range, fight melee. I'm wondering let's do this. Let's force the situation. Let's force it to spawn only ranged characters. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to change both sides to be ranged. So now every single thing that gets spawned is a ranged character. Now when it gets spawned, the thing that it should do is it should say fight ranged. It does not. So what we need to do is figure out why it's going through the ranged loop. And what we could probably do is if we come into our behavior tree, we're definitely over here. What I don't understand is why this is. Okay. Boolean is ranged as false. How is that possible? Enemy range child. We call the parent construction script. What does the parent construction script do? All that. Oh, you know what? Oh my gosh. This is the construction script. We may need to do this in the event graph. Let's try that. I'll explain. If this works, I'll explain why this is a thing. Nope. He still thinks he's. Oh, wait. False. He's still going in there. He's still fighting as if he's melee. Okay, let's try one other thing. Let's try flipping the value of this bit to see if we just have our test backwards. So we're spawning that character, and when we spawn that character, let's set it to false. And when he spawns in, nope, still melee. Okay, so that is definitely not the problem. For some reason, the blackboard value is range is not getting set. Did I spell it wrong? B is ranged. Looks exactly the same. Get blackboard. Controller. Maybe we don't actually have the right blackboard. Like we're getting the blackboard for something else. Get player controller, returns a player controller at the specified player. Nope, that's not what I want. Get AI controller. Get the blackboard. Check the range. Let's try this. Dude. Oh, look at this. There's an error down here. Access none. Trying to read property data, return value, blueprint, enemy range child, execute, set values, bool. It's none. What? This is the enemy range child. Get a self. Get a reference to self. Can we get a blackboard from self? Let's see if we see that same error again. Yep. So I was right. For some reason, we're not getting the right blackboard. So the enemy ranged. Get the controller. Get. Returns the instant for this actor, a null pointer if there is none. Okay, let's try that. Do we also get an error that it's null? Yeah. These are all null. How in the heck is this null? I know we're doing stuff with the AI in other places. Show hide health bar, on damage, we're drawing debug arrows. In here, we're showing berserker. Hold on, let me find a case where we're doing this. Updating the health bar. Man, are we actually not AI? AI status component. That might be worth looking at because we probably do it there. So let's come back here and go to content AI status. Oh, no. That's not what we're looking for. That's just the text above their head. Enemy is an AI controller class, any enemy AI. That should be what we need. Hold on a second. Let's try this. Let's get the AI controller. So we get the AI controller. And from that, we're going to cast the enemy AI. And then from enemy AI, let's get the blackboard. I don't understand why we would have to do this. With that blackboard, we're going to set the value as bool. Okay, let's try this. Play. Nope. Come on, man. Let's put a breakpoint here. This seems dumb. We should be able to... Okay, so it comes in. We're beginning our play. The AI controller. It's bogus. Is it just not valid yet? Oh, dude, look at this. Oh, actually, look at this. Okay, so what is happening is when we come in after we possess, this is actually setting our Boolean range to false. I think this is overriding, and here's how we can test this. If I put a breakpoint here, which one are we gonna miss? Antius, I was seeing, I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't see that question before. There's also a Twitch chat, and actually, you know, I realized the last time I was streaming, I should probably read questions just so that anybody who's not like actually watching chats knows what's being asked, and I meant to do that tonight, but still learning a lot about streaming, so apologies for that. But yes, there was another person who jumped in named Dosa, who is a character modeler that's getting more into the game dev side of stuff. So let's see here. What I want to do is, okay, so we're going to break on this, and we still have our breakpoint in our enemy ranged. We do. So we're going to hit the, let's see if we hit the begin play or the possession first or last. So first, let's play. Okay, so this is the begin play. Then all of a sudden we hit our possess. So what's happening is we're hitting begin play, we're setting our character to be ranged, then we're possessing the character and we're overriding those values as part of the AI controller. So I don't think we even want to do this step. And I think we can get rid of this breakpoint now. And now, why this dude's melee? I'm still terribly confused by this. I almost wonder. If when they get possessed, actually, let's try something. I have a crazy idea. I'm wondering if what's happening is the blackboard doesn't exist yet until it's actually possessed. So what I want to do here is, let's do this. Let's cast to enemy. Actually, let's do this. Let's cast to enemy range child. And then what we're going to do is, if it's true, we are going to set this as a ranged character. And if it's false, we're going to not set it as a ranged character. Let's see if that does it. Boom, he's ranged. Perfect. Okay, another bit of feedback. Beyond just reading questions out loud, one of the things, again, I'm trying to not be so abrupt in ending the streams, but it's starting to get a little bit late. We went over a little bit over, but this is a great stopping point. We got our ranged characters now in. In fact, if we go ahead and do this, we should randomly get some ranged and some melee. So let's just, as a final piece here, hopefully we get some red and some blue. Oh, no. Remember, we hard-coded that. We hard-coded that. I was like, almost. So in our spawner, what we did is we changed this to be, we need this to be 50-50. And let's go back and play again. We have blues and reds. That is great. And the ranged characters should stay much further away than the red ones. And they are. Look at that, they're even aiming. I don't even know when I was doing that. I don't even remember doing it. It's been so long since I touched the button, since I've had time to work on this. That's cool, but look at them, they're actually aiming. That's kind of wild. Okay, so I think that's actually a great point to wrap up for today. Just as a general heads up, we will still be doing the stream Wednesday morning, but it is a pre-recorded stream. I'm actually not going to be available that morning, but we want to be consistent with the times. Going to take a little bit of a detour and work a little bit on some retargeting between meshes, just for something different, because with the AI stuff, I kind of just want to be here to go through questions and stuff if they happen to come up. But overall, this is cool. I feel like we made some progress today. As usual, for anybody out there who is watching after the fact, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, throw those in the comments below. I try to prioritize questions in all the Q&As, and for future stuff, I'll just go back and look at the comments and see if we can answer those. So they're there. Thanks for joining us. I hope everybody has a great week. Sweet. Later.